Hello, and welcome to an intro to Anthro with two humans. I'm human number one, John McCray.
And I'm human number two, John Lehr.
And this is the podcast where we reassess what it means to be human. And the title of this episode is Pinkies Up, Elbows Down, a good and proper look at table manners.
Yes. No anthropological show is complete without a study of table manners.
Right. We are going to look at the history and the significance of dining etiquette today, John.
I love it. And I think we should point out that we are taping this episode on Super Bowl Sunday.
Right.
So our listeners know they're in the future. They know who won.
Yeah.
We both have our Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
We know the Chiefs are hated now by everyone.
Right.
Because they're winners.
Yeah.
And we're happy about that because you and I went through years and years of pain.
Yeah, 5 decades of pain. So, I think we put in the work. You know what I mean? Exactly. I could take a few years of people like the Chiefs being the villain. So I know how it feels.
Yes, yeah. Were you born in 1965?
66.
Okay,
66.
So you were born on Super Bowl II,
right?
And I was born on Super Bowl I. And
right.
They won Super Bowl IV, and then 50 years later, so we're like, we're thrilled that people. And I'm sorry to interrupt the broadcast. I just want to say that just because I think it's pertinent.
Oh yeah.
And I would like to say, regardless of who wins, I love the Taylor Swift thing. More Taylor, the better. I want her to have a podium at the podium after the game. I want her to give a full report. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I want her to talk after. I want her to say what she was going through. Like I get Andy Reid, but it's like
Thanks, Andy. Get off the podium. Get Taylor up here. I want to hear her what she thought.
I mean, it's all valid, is all I'm saying, and I support it too because it's just to see those young kids in love. A little more love in life. Like why is everybody so unhappy?
All right. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. So, and also, if they do lose, don't tell us next week because we probably turned it off before the game was over. And we're in the sense of denial, pretending like they may have come back in the last 20 seconds and won the game.
True.
Yeah. Just let us be oblivious.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 50 years. 50 years we can be oblivious for one. So anyway, before we go on with the actual episode, Pinkies Up, Elbows Down, I just have to put out a disclaimer for this one.
Good.
And in all the research I did to prepare for this episode, I didn't see anybody ever saying that when you drink tea, you're supposed to put your pinky up.
Really?
Right. In fact, Eileen Donahue on her website, the Afternoon Tea Expert, she emphatically states that holding your pinky up while drinking tea does not make you look cute, does not make you look posh, and it is not the correct way to drink tea.
I agree, and it serves no purpose. You're not counterbalancing that teacup with the
Right.
It serves absolutely no purpose. That's interesting. So maybe it's so funny to put your tea out and drink. Maybe it came from a comedian or something. Making fun of being posh.
Yeah. I think that's what it was. It was being satirical. But she says the reason it may have come about was back in the old days when English middle class and upper class had servants that maybe they didn't want to touch what the servants had touched. So it was making fun of the fact of them just kind of holding on with like a couple fingers and their thumb.
Jesus.
God,
really?
Yeah, you look like a jerk.
What are they afraid the servants are doing?
I don't know. No telling what the servants really were doing to them.
Well, that's true. I've worked in the service industry.
No, it's like, okay, you want to not give me one Saturday off a month? I'll show you,
Yeah, that's true.
Where those spoons.
Speaking of manners, don't ever send your food back.
Right.
I think we've discussed that on the
Yeah.
podcast before, but don't ever do it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And somebody actually in one of these etiquette books said that too. It's like, unless absolutely necessary, do not do it. Do not do
Do not. It is never absolutely necessary.
it. You can eat on the way home. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Just don't go back to that restaurant.
You don't want your, fillet of sole or whatever to get like abused back in the
I've seen some horrible kitchen. I've seen some horrible. We've both worked in kitchens of restaurants. We've seen some horrible things. Everybody's like, no, that doesn't really happen. And I'm here to tell you, it does.
And then also Donahue says that the other thing, it may have been when English people first started drinking tea, they drank it out of little cups without handles on them. So she thinks that maybe at that time in like the 1700s, you would hold that little cup with two fingers and your thumb, and people didn't know what to do with their extra finger, the ring finger.
Oh, so it was like Chinese teacups.
Right. Mm-hmm. So she thinks it may have come from that. But again, don't do it now.
Right.
But the reason I put it out there is, look, I know it's incorrect. So I don't want anybody to say like, well, in your title of your episode, you said Pinkies up. And I don't want any like real manners experts contacting us and saying, hey, you guys, you haven't even got through your title and it's already.
I feel like you've covered your bases pretty good here.
Okay. Yeah. What I wanted to say is, I originally had two other working titles to this episode. And one was called Missed Manners, like MISSED, MANNERS, which was playing on Miss Manners, who's the etiquette expert. Of course. And then somehow I got off on a Beatles tangent, and I had She's Got Etiquette to Ride. so anyway, but last night I was just
this whole pun part of you I've never known.
I've never been into puns at all. I've never been into puns at all.
Fantastic.
I've never been into social media, and this podcast is.
I know you're our social media maven on this show.
Yeah. I've never done puns, and I've never done social media until about 4 months ago.
If you're new to this podcast and do yourself a favor and subscribe to our Instagram and our Facebook, because Mr. McCray, Professor McCray, is throwing some stuff up there that is hilarious and informational. Infotainment.
Look, I'm not throwing out like empty calories out there. These are real. This is something to chew on when you get it.
Yes.
But anyway, last night, right before I went to bed, and it was late because we had been up watching movies. But so last night I'm laying in bed, the lights are out, and I decided to try out these two working titles to my wife, Mary. And as you know, Mary has an MFA in poetry from Sarah Lawrence College.
Amazing. Please check her out. We support her. We endorse Mary Ladd.
Very good. Like her poetry is amazing, really funny, really creative.
Yeah.
But anyway, so, I respect her opinion when it comes to stuff. So I threw out those two working titles, just silence in the dark, just silence. And at the end, after a little pause, she's like, what the hell are you talking about? Because as a poet in poetry, you always wanted to like refer back to something. And she was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Right. You're out in the middle of the ocean flailing.
Yeah. So this is pinkies up, elbows down. Of course, it's not correct as far as like etiquette goes. Although elbows down, you want to keep your elbows off the table, but pinkies up is wrong. But, it was just trying to be clever. It was something that we workshopped last night in the dark, in bed.
And she likes this one.
She likes this one. Yeah,
okay,
she gave an approval to this one.
When in doubt, we should follow Mary, in my opinion.
Yeah, she's legit. Like when it comes to like grammar and everything.
If there's a zombie apocalypse and I happen to be at your place, I'm following Mary.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if anything, your newsletter that comes out, the survival newsletter afterwards, is going to be really well composed and we have a lot of good information on it. So with me, you'll just get just forwarding other articles. That's what it is. The other thing, John, about this topic is it was sent in to us by one of our listeners, Jamie.
Yes.
And Jamie has sent us a lot of interesting topic ideas.
Yes.
She's the one that asked us about sports and the whole sports thing.
Wonderful episode.
Yeah, which led to football fans and football fools.
Mm-hmm.
But a few weeks back, she sent me out a message in Facebook that said, "What about dining etiquette? To spork or not to spork?" So anyway, that is a great topic, Jamie. So today we're going to look at table manners and the significance of table manners.
This is excellent. This is something I know very little about.
Yeah.
I was not raised with manners. I had to learn them along the way.
Oh, believe me, I've eaten with you a lot.
I am terrible.
Yeah.
I just eat as fast as I can. I guess because we didn't have a ton of money, and I don't know why, but I just wolf it down. I'm disgusting.
Eat soup with your fingers. just dip it in there and get them wet and suck it off. And then also, just a reminder to everybody, if you have an idea for a topic, send it in to us. Yeah, because we'll respond. We'll respond.
Yes,
we read everything.
Yes, we do. Everything.
And criticism we probably don't read as thoroughly.
No, I hit delete as soon as I see that it's criticism. I can't handle it.
But again, as we mentioned before, we've been criticized by the best. We've been shredded by the best.
Yes, we have. Jesus.
Yeah. So it can't just be some adjectives. You got to put together a real argument of what we're doing wrong. So, John, you've mentioned already that you've worked in a lot of restaurants. Did you ever work as a waiter in a restaurant?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel strongly that if everyone in the world worked as a waiter, it would be an entirely different planet, because you really, really see humanity and just, oh my God, man, you give people any power at all. And there's a wide swath of humanity that just turns into dicks. It's unreal. But yes, I have been a waiter. In fact, one of my waiting jobs was at a diner that was open 24 hours in Chicago, and I worked the graveyard. And let me tell you, when those bars closed, oh my God.
Yeah.
It was hit or miss, though. It was a little like being a 49er, because they would come in and they would either screw up and over tip you like big time, or there would be nothing and they would just vomit on the way out.
Oh,
so you never knew. You never knew what was going to happen.
Did you have to learn, did they teach you how to serve people or proper etiquette when serving people, or did you just pick it up on the fly when you were there?
Yeah, not really. No, this was not that kind of establishment. I mean, you don't want to have your thumb in their coffee when you sit it down, or in their soup, or, things like that. But no, it was just, you just bust your butt, man, for 8 hours.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
I worked as a waiter. It was more like a busboy. It was like an underwaiter in like a fancy French restaurant.
I remember those days. Yeah.
I did it for like 2 months. I was awful. I was horrible. I was at the time, let me just say, at the time was probably the lowest part of my life. I was depressed, suicidal, drunk out of my mind all the time, like 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
I was unkempt, disheveled, smelly, and adversarial. So it was probably not a good career choice for me at the time.
You know what? You were still lovable, though. Somehow.
I don't know. I don't know if I was.
I loved you.
Well, that's nice. Thank you. You're a good friend for sticking through the bad times as well as the good.
That's right.
But honestly, after, like I say, 2 months, the restaurant and I kind of agreed that this maybe wasn't the best path for me, and I went on to find greener pastures elsewhere. So here I am.
But you were
Uh,
speaking French at that time, right?
I was, but none of the other waiters spoke French, and I was the only waiter that spoke French.
Wow.
The chef was French, and he was a Napoleon expert. He loved Napoleon, which are two things that I know.
Yes.
So it made it even worse that I was such a bad waiter. All the other waiters knew that I sucked. But yet they couldn't say anything to him because I would be in the bar after work with him drinking French beers, speaking French, and talking about Napoleon.
Oh,
So 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 if that's not a reason to like learn a second language, I don't know what is. You
that's
never
damn
know when
right.
it will come in handy. But I'll agree with you that to be a good waiter is I have so much respect for good waiters because it's an art and it's a skill, and there's so much stuff that you have to manage.
Oh,
Like out in the front, you got to be really accommodating and really nice to people and give them a good time. And in the back, it's just chaos. It's
yeah.
just people screaming and yelling and dishes flying all over the
It's a
place. And
war zone to get your orders filled in time.
yeah,
Everybody,
yeah,
oh
and
God.
wet, and it smells like there's wet in
Oh,
the smoke, everything, and the dirty dishes, and to be able to do that well uh, is, like I say, I just have so much respect for it
it's
because
true.
yeah,
It's true.
um,
Don't send things back and don't complain to your waiter and always tip them 20%.
yeah, at
At
least
least.
it's a hard job. It's a
Yeah.
hard job,
Just
and
just do it. Just
yeah,
do it. Doesn't seem fair though. Tips are supposed to be about how good a job.
yeah,
No, they're
yeah,
not. You're not
yeah,
in charge. You're
yeah.
not the manager. Your job is just to move that decimal point and double it and put that money and add it to your check.
Yeah.
You don't,
And-
your job is not to look at the waiters and be like, you know what? I think this waiter only deserves 12%.
right,
No,
right.
that's not your job.
I had one where my mom had a boyfriend out in L.A., out in Redondo Beach, and he would want to take us out to eat, and I'd always be like, "Oh God, I don't want to go out to eat with him because I never know what he's going to tip." He was one of those old school
Ugh.
guys who'd be like, "I'm tipping him $1 no matter what the bill is."
Ugh.
And one time we did that, and the waitress followed us out to the parking lot, and I had no idea he had done that.
The waiter
And
finally snapped. I think
yeah,
every waiter's had that moment where it's like, seriously?
yeah, yeah,
Seriously?
yeah.
You douche.
Or at least if you're tell me, because I'd always make an excuse. Like with my mom, I'd make an excuse and go back and throw more money on the
Yeah, that's what we would do.
table.
My wife's grandfather would
Yeah.
always bitch. I always said to her, he ate more spit than anybody I know because he was such a jerk.
Yeah.
And I would hang back and just say, how much did he give you? And then I would make up the
Yeah.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't want to tip, go to like a salad bar place,
Yeah.
like a soup plantation or something. You know what I mean? Just
Or McDonald's.
yeah. How do you feel about going to fancy restaurants? Do you like going to fancy restaurants, or do you?
No, I don't. And the reason I don't is because I did so much cocaine in the 90s, I think, and I
Right.
smoked.
Right.
I was right up there with you in terms of chain smoking. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the cause, but I don't have a great sense of smell.
Really?
Yeah, things need to be extra spicy or extra something for me to really taste things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a waste. It's a
Yeah.
waste. And also, I just have a deep hatred towards people who are too precious about things.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
just can't take it. Just turns my stomach to see people churning the wine and putting their
Yeah.
nose in the
Yeah.
glass. I just can't. I just get angry. It makes me angry, and I don't know why. And I know it's my hang up, but I'm just like, stop that. You just get fucked up like the rest of us.
Yeah. Just slosh it all in there together.
And it's also because now that I'm sober, it's very expensive because the
Right.
wines are the
Right.
things that, so, and they always want to. I went to a friend of ours who's a foodie. Did I talk about this?
Yeah. Yeah. You did talk
Yeah.
about that, about
And
all
it
the
was like
money.
300 a person at the end. And I was just like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. That's what,
It's
yeah. You're like, no, I drank water the whole night.
nothing's this good. I've done
Yeah.
heroin. That's
Yeah.
worth the money.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like I hate, I like going to fancy restaurant, but I hate it when it's so intimidating when you get
Yeah.
in there and it's like, oh God, you got to watch. I don't know if I'm going to use the right fork. I don't know if
Yeah.
what they're going to bring me, if I know how I'm going to eat it. It's like, to me, going out should be enjoyable. And if you have anxiety about your behavior when you're going out,
We
then
went
there's
to a
something
really
wrong.
fancy place that was like hidden away, and the waiter comes up afterwards and goes, "I know it's illegal in California. But I just want you to know we have foie gras. Is that how you say it?
Foie gras.
Foie gras.
Yeah.
And if you'd like some." And I'm like, "What?
Yeah.
What the
Yeah.
fuck? No, I
Somebody's.
don't want that. It's illegal for a reason."
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just like, "Ugh."
Yeah. I thought you were going to tell it like he had heroin or something. He was
No,
like
that
trying
would
to
have been
give you
nice. A
something.
little,
Yeah.
just
Or
give me a little
absinthe or
half-inch
something.
line here.
What you're coming up to be secretive about that?
Yeah,
Give me
about
something I
shoving shit
want.
in a goose, and then oh god,
Yeah. Yeah. It was always the same with like opera and Shakespeare, I think. It's like people are always, they go see an opera because I worked, for the
Yes,
Santa
you
Fe
did.
Opera for a while.
For those of
And
you
they,
just listening in, Mr. McCray has worked almost every job there is.
yeah. And it all comes down to that same sort of discussion I had with the restaurant, which was like after about 2 months, it's like maybe this isn't the career path for you.
Yeah.
So, I move on.
Well, you're like a cynical socialist there. That's the worst place for you.
Yeah.
You're like ready to set the place on fire with all the rich people in it.
but it's the same with Shakespeare too. Like when people perform like Americans perform Shakespeare, it's so precious, and you don't get any of the emotion because everyone, they want to use the Italians have a term like you have to handle them with tweezers, meaning you have to like really, somebody's so sensitive you have to handle them with tweezers, and that's the way I feel like people handle Shakespeare or opera in this country. It's like,
Shakespeare's the worst. I've done a little bit of Shakespeare, and what sucks is the audience knows, those dickheads know all the lines. So if you screw up, they know it. It's like it's an audience full of dramaturgs.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. And you tried to improvise something there, go off book. They're like, oh God, in the fourth act,
they're all mouthing it while you're doing it.
Oh, no.
It's horrible.
It's like going to see Grease or something. Everybody in the audience knows it.
Yes. Oh.
But I feel like you have to be able to. I had a French professor in college who, at one time during a lecture on Proust, on Swann's Way in Proust, during the lecture, he was crying. And at the end of the lecture, he was yelling at us all to create. And we're all just like, we're all like 18, 19 years old. So we're just gathering up our notebooks and like, okay, man, whatever,
I'm going to create, but first I'm going to go back to the dorm and take a good poo because I'm so hungover.
Yeah, and at the time it's like maybe I didn't appreciate, but now that I've gotten older, I kind of do realize where he was going with it. It's like life is so short. Just enjoy it, and you got to feel it all. You know what I mean? You got to feel it all, and no matter what happens, who cares? Who cares ultimately what happens?
Yeah.
So
it's true.
He ultimately got reprimanded for walking around on his hands and knees in the French department, telling another professor how much he loved her. So apparently, some people do care. Some people do care.
Yeah, that's an instance where you should stop creating.
Yeah. It's like I get it, I appreciate it now, but it's like there is a limit to that. How about you've been traveling in Europe a lot recently?
Yes.
How are you feeling about high art and European art and culture? Do you like going to the museums or restaurants over there?
Yeah, well, look, I'm a people watcher. That is my
Hmm.
favorite thing in the world.
Yeah.
My favorite place. I'm in Las Vegas right now. That's why I look like I'm in a cell or something. I'm down in the basement of
Yeah.
my brother's house.
It's
Um,
cheap too. Cheap. When people watching's cheap. You can go out and
cheap,
just do it
and I'm
anywhere.
just it just does it for me. And my
Yeah.
favorite place to people watch is the Las Vegas airport. It is
Really?
my number one favorite
Yeah.
habitat. Because you see it all. You see people leaving broke. You see high rollers coming in. You see
Yeah.
overweight tourists from all over. You see, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when I'm at a museum, I'm really about the other people at the museum, to be
Interesting.
honest. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
That's a
I love history. I love
yeah.
history, so I love that. But yeah, I'm super happy. That's the one thing. I travel a lot, but I'm working
Yeah.
and I'm performing. So one of the things that makes it so great. It's the perfect way to learn about other cultures because I'm not going on all of these touristy things.
Right.
I'm
Right.
just, walking to the grocery store and I
Yeah.
love that. I love that.
That's cool. How about I mean, did you watch Downton Abbey? Did you get into
Yes,
Downton Abbey?
loved it. Loved it.
Did you really?
Resisted, saw it,
Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was people are really into Downton Abbey. I was into the first I thought it was like a mini series. And so
Yes.
I watched that first series, the first
Yeah.
season, and I was Mary. It was over, and I was like, "Oh, that was really good. That was kind of uplifting and stuff." And then Mary goes, "Oh, do you want to watch the second season?" And I was like, "What? What?"
Yeah. And
I know.
like every series, the second season always takes a big dive. And
Yeah,
people always
yeah,
ask me about that. Why is the second season always bad? And that's because you put everything you had in season one and everybody's exhausted.
yeah. That's what I think. It was Steve Martin said that about comedy, about stand up. He's like, "Of course, when you first come out, it's brilliant because you've spent 20 years working on
Right.
that material. And then the next time, it's like, oh, come up with more. It's like, I don't have any more. I
Right.
used it all."
That's why you see the difference between his first album, Let's Get Small, and his second album,
Right.
Comedy Is Not Pretty.
Right. One
It
was
was
written in 15 years. One was written in like 2 weeks. uh, Remember there was that guy, that congressman in 2015 who had his office redecorated at the Rayburn Congressional Building in DC. And he says he didn't know what the decorator was going to do with it, but they did his office in this old congressional office building. They did it to look like the dining room in Downton Abbey.
no.
Yeah.
I somehow missed this. That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah. And it kind of remember in Man with Two Brains, the
Yes.
Steve Martin movie,
Yes.
and remember he goes into the Dr. Frankenstein, Dr. Necessiter. He goes into his house, and it's in a condo, a modern condo building. But when you get inside his condo, it's all decorated to look like a medieval castle. It's like that's what it reminds me of. It's like
Whoever the decorators were, my hat's off that you would
yeah,
torch your career over the best practical joke ever.
I know, I know.
That's
And
great.
he eventually, I think he had to resign because there was all kinds of money issues with him.
Well, yeah, if you're managing your life where somehow somebody hoodwinks you into turning your office into Downton Abbey, you have no business.
Yeah, yeah. These are
That's it.
the men and women who are making decisions for all of us. You
You're
know what I
out.
mean?
That's a bad decision. You made a bad decision.
The other thing that I always find interesting is people always, when you watch it, you think you're going to be up there with the Duke or the Lord. Like you're going to be the one out there in the dining room and not the one out back, like cleaning out the latrine or something.
That's right. That's right.
The fantasy to go back in time, you're always like, you're not only going back in time, but you're like one of the upper crust.
Yeah. And that's and it's still the case. It's the top 1%,
Yeah.
and the rest of us have to clean out the latrine.
yeah. I have a feeling in the past there weren't many McCrays that were going to Downton Abbey. You know what I mean? We were probably, and if we did go to Downton Abbey, it was like to pick up garbage and haul it away from there or something. You
know? The Lehrs too. I just found out from my cousin
yeah.
who kind of has been going back into the Lehr tree, which is very difficult because our grandparents were both orphaned.
Really?
And wow. And so he's gone back in the Lehr, and he did the DNA test. And found out that we're not German at all. Like we have very little German, and Lehr is a German name. And he says we're like 90% Irish.
Really?
And we come from the O'Leary side, and somebody along the way changed it to Lehr.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what he said. That's what he said.
Wow. Yeah, I always thought Lehr, like how it's spelled, has to be like German, right?
And fancy, because Lehr means teacher, and it turns out we're just Irish and broke.
How do you like to pronounce your name? Do you like it Lehr or do you like it Lehr? Or
I answer to all of it because it should be Lehr, I think.
Yeah.
But for some reason, my hillbilly family, we all pronounce it Lehr. I don't know.
I remember one time when we were doing the comedic lectures.
Yes.
And remember the show, you would come out, the audience was in there. I'd already done my stuff. I'd sat down, the show would start. And as soon as you come out, there was an old guy that was like, "Oh, hell no," and got up and stormed out. And I was like, you hadn't even said anything yet. And what had happened I found out from the people that were out in the lobby is because he was complaining when he got out. He had read our ad, misread our ad, and thought it said John Lehr. And he thought you were Bert Lahr's son, who he knew, who he had known back in Hollywood back in the days. And so he was expecting Bert Lahr, Bert Lahr's son to come out and talk about my dad, the lion, the cowardly lion.
Just goes to show sometimes there's nothing you can do to entertain the audience.
I know. It's like just furious. Like as soon as he saw you, furious, stormed out.
That's hilarious.
Okay, John. So let's get down to business here. We got a Super Bowl to watch.
Yeah, we do.
So the business of etiquette. In her book, The Rituals of Dinner, The Origins, Evolution, Eccentricities, and Meaning of Table Manners, Margaret Visser, and I'm just going to say this is the best book that I found. If you're into table manners and the history of table manners, this book has it all. So you'll find that I'm quoting this one a lot because it was just laid out. It's so thorough and so great. It came out in 1991.
High praise from Professor McCray. High praise.
Right. But she says that one of the reasons we have etiquette and manners is that manners pressure people to behave in a predictable fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And then she says,
because when we were back in the day, you kill the woolly mammoth, everybody's jumping on it, it becomes a war, and it's like, wait a minute. Let's set some ground rules. We're all going to eat. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. Everybody calm down. It's just calm down. We're not going to go hungry here. And then she says, when we all know what to do on a given occasion, say at a wedding or a death, we are all enabled by convention to interrelate, to play our often preordained roles, just where having to make choices and think up scenarios would be most difficult and exhausting. So it's almost, I would say it's like improv. Like when people say, like, why do you rehearse improv? Why do you come up with a structure for improv? It's improv. And it's like, well, no, the structure allows you to relax into what's going to happen and where it's running. And then you can improvise and have fun as long as you know that basic structure is there.
Yes. It gives you, and it also gives you something to think about instead of how good am I doing right now?
Right. Right. Exactly.
It distracts you.
Yeah. And that's what, I mean, when I read that line of hers about what etiquette and manners is, that's what it is. It's that underlying structure that everything's not going to go too far out of control. You can always come back to that structure. And then you could just kind of relax and enjoy the evening or enjoy your time together. I remember I went to our friend Jeff's wedding when Jeff got married to Alexis, and Alexis is from Cebu in the Philippines. And I was there for the wedding. And you know how here in
The
America, when
wedding
we
was in the Philippines, by the way.
right, right,
Yeah, you were there.
yeah, and we went
You bought me a
to
wonderful shirt that I still have.
yeah, so we went to the cathedral where the wedding was going to be in Cebu, a huge cathedral from I think like the 1700s. But you know how in America we always have the rehearsal dinner before a wedding. We always do the rehearsal, and then it becomes a big thing. Like you have the rehearsal, then you go to the rehearsal dinner. Rehearsal kind of tells people everything what they're going to do. They didn't have one, and so I was like, well, how am I? Basically, I was anxious about myself. I was like,
Right.
how am I going to know what to do? Or
Mhm.
why aren't we having a rehearsal? And their response, and Alexa's response, was like, well, everybody here goes to so many weddings that we just know what to do.
Right.
Like
They
you
don't need
know.
it.
Right.
They didn't
But
they didn't count on some
yeah.
some goofball rolling in.
Right, right. Some guy glomming onto this event, you know.
There's so many rituals to weddings that are, when you dig down, are so interesting. Like, for Jewish weddings, they sign the Jewish license before
Yeah,
you go on. So you get married before the ceremony legally in
really.
Jewish weddings. Yeah. And it takes so much pressure off because
Yeah,
you're already
yeah.
married. And now you go out to the
Yeah,
ceremony and you can be more relaxed, which is
yeah.
right in line with what you're saying.
Right, right. You can screw it up out there. There's
Yeah, it
no
doesn't
way out.
matter.
There's no
No
way
matter
out.
what happens out there, we're married.
Uh, the other thing which is different for that wedding is, usually when you get married here in the States, there's like one wedding going on at a time in a church or a cathedral.
No.
And so I was out front, and all these people were coming up dressed up for a wedding. And so I was out front, like welcoming people and saying hi and introducing myself and shaking hands. Come to find out, they were all there for the other weddings that were going on at the same time. So I was greeting a bunch of strangers.
You and I are the same at weddings. We're like there to work.
I know.
We're like, what do you need?
Yeah, yeah. I'm taking care of the groom. I'm taking care of the bride. Make sure they're fed.
I took care of stuff for you and Mary's weddings. I was at both of your weddings.
Yeah, yeah.
But I worked at the one with Mary. I worked pretty hard. I remember I had to get a keg or something. Wasn't there something I had to do? I remember doing something like that. Anyway,
and you had to pay all the people. You had all the money, which was
right. I had all the cash.
Yeah, at the end.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a good wedding.
That was a good wedding. That was a fun wedding. The thing is about wedding, they should be like shows. They should be like performances, and it's all about the audience. It's all about the audience.
Exactly. I totally agree. There are two kinds of weddings. There are weddings where the bride and groom think it's about them, and there's weddings where the bride and groom realize everybody's coming there, and it's about them. And boy, are they two distinct ways. We're going to offer you guys a wedding in Italy. It'll be your vacation. Well, guess what? I'd like to choose my own vacations.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't have a vacation for me.
Yeah.
It's not a vacation.
Yeah. And for the people who are like, oh, it's my day. It's my perfect day.
It's not your day.
Yeah. It won't be perfect. It won't be perfect.
It won't be perfect. And it's all of our day. We're all taking time off to get suited up and come to this thing.
Yeah.
My day.
So again, John, customary table manners, like we're talking about, allows you to kind of know what's expected and what you're supposed to do in these new situations.
Love that.
And the other thing that etiquette and table manners do is they reassure the host that you aren't going to do anything crazy at their house.
Interesting.
Yeah. If
That's
you know
why it
how
freaks them out if you do something that you're not doing table manners. It's like the peer pressure. No, don't do that. Don't stab your fork into the turkey and put it all on your table, on your plate. I mean, yeah.
there's a reason for those, not only for you to know what's expected of you so you can relax, but for the host to relax knowing that you're not going to go off book.
Interesting.
Go crazy.
Interesting.
And Visser also says that etiquette is ritual, and it's a ritual that is an expression of solidarity. So when our polite behavior, she says, is performed for the sake of other people and for the sake of our relationship with other people. So again, this politeness, or like staying true to whatever is expected of us in certain situations and certain, what the manner says, it's us saying that since we're all doing it, we're all part of the same group. It's you expressing that you're part of this group and you want to be part of this group.
Okay.
Yeah. And, I understand that, there's times where we don't want to do what society expects of us. For example, during, segregation or Jim Crow era, it was right for African-American students to go do a sit-in, for example, when society said you couldn't go to a lunch counter or something. But what I'm talking about here, so I recognize that there are times where we want to go against what society's rules say, I think.
Yes. Change is good overall.
Right. But what I'm talking about here is doing what's socially acceptable when you're invited over to your friend's house or when you're invited to your cousin's wedding. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It shows respect. It shows that you're being thoughtful. I get all of that. I like that.
Yeah. So an example would be like if you're excited, invited over for a black tie dinner at somebody's house, and everyone else is wearing tuxedos, and you come in and you kick your shoes off or take your pants off and go, just plop down at the head of the table.
Wait a minute. Did you just say take your pants off? Who's taking their pants off?
I'm giving an example. You know what I mean? I like to give like a clear example that people can understand what we're talking about.
Okay, but neither of us has ever taken our pants off before sitting down at a table, have we? I can't think of.
Not at a black tie event. I don't think. I may have done it at other events, I think.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. Taking your pants off and having a nice meal.
Yeah. Nobody can see if there's tablecloths. Just make sure there's a tablecloth.
It's poor man's luxury. You're like, I'm going to take it easy.
Yeah.
It's like in Passover where the Jews you're supposed to lie down while you eat to show that you're taking the day off.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you're supposed to be on a pillow.
I was thinking about, in the movies, people love that. This is a great trope in the movies of like somebody who goes to a fancy dinner and then does something that's not expected. So like in Hair, remember Berger gets up on the table and he's singing in the musical Hair.
Don't ask me why I'm such a hairy guy.
Yeah. No more or else we'll have to pay for it.
Oh, sorry.
We'll blank that out when you do your editing. You'll recite some Edgar Allan Poe or something.
My singing's so bad it will not trip the copyright equation.
Shazam doesn't pick that up.
No.
And then remember in the Blues Brothers where Jake and Elwood go to that French restaurant and they do the same thing. Right. Yeah, they're doing the same thing. It's like, but they're expressing in those situations that they're not part of the group, And yes, it's hilarious in the movies, but it can be very uncomfortable in real life.
Yes.
So, and I would say
manners, here's the thing, like anything that's structured or dug in, it gets taken too far. Where it's not about showing. I get that you're showing respect to the host. I get that you're showing respect to your fellow people and that, you're a part of rather than this, outsider judging and I get that.
Yeah.
But then they take it too far, What's this fork for again?
Yeah. I would say though it's the same thing as if it depends. You have to know the situation. You have to know the context and what the manners are of the situation. So if I were inviting somebody over for ribs and burn-ins and a Chiefs game, it would be Yeah, that would be fantastic. but you could see where, and they show up in a suit and tie, it would be the same thing. Like they haven't paid attention to what the rules are or the manners
Exactly.
are in this situation.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Yes.
so it goes
Well
both
said.
ways. So it's not
Yes,
only
it
about
does.
a fork, it's about, hey, you're coming over for a Chiefs game. You're
Yeah,
making
it's
everybody
about
uptight.
awareness. It's about awareness, and it's about extending yourself and it not being
Yeah.
so selfish. It's about being,
Right.
I reading the room,
Yeah. Yeah.
taking the time to look outside your own bullshit, self.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So I think you got it. I mean, so when somebody sends over something, say, "Oh, wear a jacket and tie or something," and you're just like, and I've done it myself. I'm like, "Oh God, why do I have to wear a jacket and tie? I'm so uncomfortable. Why do I have to do this?" It's like you were saying, it's not about you. It's not
Right.
about you. It's that your host has asked you to do it,
Right.
and everybody else is doing it. And if you want to express that you're part of this group, then you defer to what the host is doing
Yes.
or what the host has
It goes
asked
for
you to do.
everything. Like I have a friend who, will bring up things that under the guise of being honest,
Yeah, yeah.
will bring up things at an occasion that's all just about creating antagonism. He'll bring up
Oh,
politics,
yeah, yeah,
and he knows what he's doing,
yeah,
and it's just it's just rude. It's just
yeah.
like there's a time and a place, dude.
Right,
This is
right.
not your Facebook page.
Yeah. And it's interesting that most of these etiquette books for the last 500 years usually say that at dinner, bring up something enjoyable. Basically,
Yeah.
dinner is supposed to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
And it's not the time to bring up something that makes people uncomfortable, because you're basically saying, I'm not a part of this group. I don't
Right.
want to be a part of this group.
Yes. I don't care about your feelings. Oh, I like
Yeah.
that. I like where this is going. This is sweet.
What's also interesting is from an etymological standpoint, the word host and guest both come from the same Indo-European word, hostess, Ghostis. And
Ghostis.
yeah, ghostess. They don't really know how it was pronounced since it was European, but it's
Right.
definitely host, guest come from the same word, which they both meant stranger. So it had something to do with like a stranger coming to your house, like this
And ghost,
earlier word.
Ghost, must be in there somewhere.
It's the same one. A ghost is an uninvited stranger in your house.
Stranger.
Is where it comes from.
Man.
But you have where like hotel also comes from that etymological word for ghostess, from the Indo-European word.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's all. But the thing is, there's like a relationship. There's both host and guest have certain obligations
Yes.
that they're supposed to
Well, like
follow.
we're talking about the wedding. You invited
Yeah,
me to your wedding. I'm going to go to your wedding, even though you're having it in Singapore or
yeah,
whatever, or you're
yeah,
having it,
yeah. And the thing is, like a host is at home and the host is giving, and the
Mm-hmm.
guest is away and the guest is receiving. But as a guest, you have no real say in what Visser says is you have no real say in how your host is going to treat you. But while you're in another person's house, you're ceremonially passive. So
Yes.
you have to step back, even though you may have a better idea or you think that maybe that's not how you would do it. You have to step back.
Listen, if our listeners can take one thing from this podcast, it's that. This isn't
Yeah,
about you. But I also get where all of this is coming from, or at least I'm guessing.
yeah,
When you've killed a wildebeest or some
yeah,
sort of woolly mammoth, right? And
right,
you've all worked together. You've got this thing, but the person who's kind of bringing everyone together, everybody's
right.
hangry too. Like
Yeah,
you haven't
yeah,
eaten. Like there's a tension going on there. And you've
right,
got to be at
right.
your best behavior in order not to like stab somebody in the throat,
Yeah, it could get out of control pretty quickly.
pretty quick.
Yeah,
Especially because everybody's drinking usually. Like you think back to the Middle Ages, there's wine flowing while they're cooking the thing. So everybody's
yeah.
wasted. Man.
They all had knives and daggers at that
Yeah.
point. Yeah,
Weapons
yeah,
everywhere. It's like everybody be cool.
yeah. And also, it's scary having people over your head, not scary, but it gives you anxiety when a bunch of people come to you, even if you know them, but just having people come into your house, into your own space. As a host, yes, you love being generous and love having people over, but also there's a lot of pressure and anxiety. Are they going to
Oh
be
my God, my
happy?
brother's going through that right now. He's having a Super Bowl party today.
Oh, is he
And
really?
2 of the guests are San Francisco 49er fans.
Oh.
And so he's like, okay, well, how do I make them feel welcome? How do I not make this? Because there's chief garb everywhere here.
Right. Well, it's the manners, because, you think about your brother has invited them. They're under his protection,
Yes.
And even though it will get heated in the game, and people don't really know how to be jokingly razzing people anymore. Sometimes it goes too far. Like I don't think people understand just a friendly joke anymore.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you have to keep in mind that they're under your brother's protection, and your brother invited them, and so everybody has to be kind to them, or friendly to them, or polite to them.
Yes.
And the thing is too, I always think about you as a host. You're like, oh, I'm so worried about, even though I know them, are they going to go in my back bedroom? Are they going to get in a fight? Are they going to break something? And
clog
just
my toilet.
Yeah. And if I said to everyone, well, when you come, please wear a tie and a jacket or a suit, and you show up and you're in your bike shorts and your flip-flops or something, you've already said to me, you're not going to follow the rules here. You know what I mean?
I don't think there's any situation where bike shorts and flip-flops are appropriate.
That's my extreme. I always go to bike shorts and flip-flops. I was talking to somebody recently. I was mentioning what is it about, you get a lot of like middle-aged guys or old guys, you put bike shorts on them and all of a sudden they think they're Lance Armstrong.
I know.
They're like,
oh my God, we should do a whole episode about bicyclists. They need to reel it in.
Yeah. It's like, look, reel it in. You went down to the Big Five and bought some bike shorts. It's not like you got to like being sponsored by, FedEx.
Dial it back, everybody.
Yeah.
Where they all pull up to the cafe and they're click-clock bike shoes, and oh boy. Everybody just take it down a notch.
What could we do? We should start just buy bowling shoes and start wearing those around everywhere. Bowling shoe and bowling glove. We just wear it everywhere and go into like a Starbucks and shove people around like, well, I'm going bowling later. You know what I mean?
There's just nothing soft about those bicycle uniforms. And what they don't realize is we all have to look at you. Your package, your butt, it's just too much.
Yeah.
Put a robe on.
Yeah. You know what? I'm writing that down. I'm writing that down. Bike culture. That's going on the list. We'll find
Good.
It'll come up again somehow.
In your little bike pack on the back of your thing where you put your bottle, roll up a robe and stick it in there. So that when you stop at the 7-Eleven or whatever, you put your robe on.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah, it should be. It should be like getting out of a sauna or something. You know what I mean? Just kind of cover up as you're on your way back to your room at the hotel.
Oh.
All right, John. So let's move on. We'll just do some of the specific dining habits throughout history, which again, Visser's book is full of all kinds of good things. She quoted an anonymous English writer in 1834 who said, "Nothing indicates a well-bred man more than a proper mode of eating his dinner. A man may pass muster by dressing well and may sustain himself tolerably in conversation, but if he is not perfectly au fait, meaning accomplished, dinner will betray him." So isn't that?
Oh God! A chill just went up my spine on that one.
So
that's me.
So even though you have a nice suit on, if you're over there eating your rolls right out of the basket, they're going to know.
Lehr is not au fait. I'll tell you that much.
The Roman writer Varro in the 1st century BCE said that diners should number, this is talking about the number of people you should have over, should number no fewer than the Graces, which was 3, and no more than the Muses, which was 9.
Oh.
So you should have 3 to 9. But one of the reasons they did that was, remember, wealthy Romans ate on couches laying down.
Yes.
So you could only get at maximum like 9 couches
Yeah,
into
how
a
many
Roman
couches
dining room.
can you cram into a That's great.
Yeah.
That must be why the Jews laid down for Passover, because it was probably,
A Roman thing. It was
yeah,
a
it probably
Roman thing.
was.
I was reading where around the Last Supper, for example, the traditional Jews would eat on the floor, like just a traditional meal, normal everyday meal. You would be on the floor, kind of like people in Arab cultures do.
Oh, my back.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But for like feasts and stuff, they would do the Roman custom, which was laying down. So that's
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
God.
So
There's nothing better than laying down with some chips and salsa. You know what I mean? Where the bowl's right on your chest and the bag of chips is within reach.
Just shovel it right in.
Oh, God, that's living. That's
That
living
is
right there.
That is living. That is living.
And back in the day, a lit cigarette too, so you could take a hit and smoke in between.
Yeah.
That's life.
Don't fall asleep. Just make sure you don't fall asleep.
Downside.
Make sure you're not alone and don't fall asleep, whatever you do. Visser also notes that in the 3rd century of the Common Era, there was a Roman emperor named Heliogabalus. And Heliogabalus was kind of an eccentric. yeah.
Helio. Hey, Helio!
Heliogabalus. Apparently that was his nickname. His real name was like Marcus Aurelius something, but they called him Heliogabalus.
Who came up with that? I'm going to call him Helio. Why? I don't know. It's funny.
Yeah. I think I don't know what Gabalus is. Helio is Greek for sun. So something sunsucker. So I don't know what
Sun fart.
But he used to when he invited people over to eat. Okay. So he would be the 9th, if you're inviting 9 people, he would then invite all of his guests with the same unique physical characteristics. So he apparently would invite 8 bald men, and of course he would be the 9th person, but all of his guests would be bald, or eight one-eyed men, or 8 fat men, and he would be the 9th. I love
this guy.
I know, it's
like a theme party.
I know. There's a part of it I like it, except when you show up if I ever show up at your house for a party and there's all a bunch of like short, bald, bearded guys in glasses.
That's what being an actor is. You show up for an audition and it's 8 people that look just like you. It's true. Especially, especially for ads, commercial auditions.
Oh, that's hilarious. You're used to it then.
People who look just like you, and the one who can remember the lines the best gets it.
There was another, Visser notes that, throughout history, we've always wanted to invite like an even number of people, preferably like same number of men, same number of women.
Okay.
And if somebody dropped out or one of their partners dropped out, it really created a problem because you didn't have an even number at your table. So there were guys in 19th century Paris that were called quatorzièmes, which were 14ths. Okay. And the idea is that you didn't want to be stuck at a table with 13 people. So these guys would just get dressed up and wait around their house every night between 5 and 9. And if somebody needed a 14th to show up, you would send a message over to this guy and they would show up at your house. And
what a great job. That's like seat fillers at all those award shows.
Yeah.
Because, all the Grammys, all those shows, there aren't, those seats are half empty because people don't show up and people leave. You know, like if you're nominated for Best Album and you didn't win, you leave. And so they have all these actors, people that come in and sit down and fill the seat.
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
It's so amazing. That's great. I want to be that. I want that job. I just have to get in a tux every day.
Yeah. Between 5 and 9.
Reading a book. Okay. Time to go to work.
It's like being a substitute teacher as well. Like, you just in the morning, you're just ready to go and just waiting for the phone to ring.
It's like a fireman.
Yeah. In the 1530s, the Dutch philosopher Erasmus wrote a book called A Handbook on Good Manners for Children. And what Erasmus, he has a lot of good information there, but he said, and this was what we were talking about, he said, whilst dining, you should be cheerful, but not cheeky. So you should.
Boy, those are words to live by.
I know.
Yeah.
Cheerful, not cheeky.
But not cheeky.
Yeah. He also says that, at dinner, nothing should be blurted out that might darken the cheerful tone. So that's what you're talking about as well.
Yeah.
It's like, look, we know that politics, but we're all here just to have dinner and enjoy the time together. Save it for later.
Yeah.
You're not solving anything tonight.
Save it for your Facebook page.
Yeah. He also said, and this seems obvious, you shouldn't criticize the meal that the host has given you.
Well, duh. But people do that. They make comments that are like, Jesus, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Well, it's a little dry. No, you don't. Shut up.
Yeah, the host is already stressed out. Just enjoy it.
You're here for another couple hours. Just eat the dry chicken and get the hell out.
Yeah, it's not going to ruin your life. I can guarantee you that. Another hour having eaten this dry chicken is not going to put you on a whole other trajectory in your life.
Yeah.
The other thing, he says some other things. He says, it's uncivilized to let your eyes roam about looking at what everyone else is eating.
How do you picture that?
Yeah. Like it's just kind of, what's John have over there?
Oh, you didn't like the rice.
Yeah.
Huh.
How do you feel whenever you go to like a Chinese restaurant? Everyone, I like having my own meal. I'm sorry. I like having my own food, my own plate.
Well, I think that's a result of your upbringing. You were with two older brothers who probably ate all your food because you were the young guy.
Yeah.
But no, Chinese food is to be shared. I mean, anytime you go to a restaurant and there's a turntable, I hate to tell you, you can't, your cashew chicken, you're going to have to give me some of that. But I get it.
I've learned a lesson. That me, to improve my manners, I need to not sit over there like I'm, at a penitentiary or something, just shoveling it into my mouth with my hand around my tray. No wonder those dinners always end up awkward at Chinese restaurants. The other thing he notes, licking a plate or dish which is sticky with sugar or something sweet is something cats do, not people.
Yes.
Yeah.
So but here's the thing. It tastes so good. I love that.
Yeah, lick the plate, you pick it up and
anything that's got sugar on it, I'm going to lick. But when you're around other people, you got to restrain yourself. I get it. Okay.
Do that.
I'm down with that.
That's what cats do. That's not what people do. Yeah. That's kind of a backhand slap at cats, I think.
Sure is. Because cats are I feel like cats eat very daintily.
Yeah.
Like dogs have bad manners. Cats have kind of good manners.
Yeah. And clean each other. They clean up afterwards.
Yeah.
This was interesting. Erasmus says, and I quote, also, make sure you don't bother the person sitting next to you with your feet. And under the table, I guess, you're stretching.
Well, there's a lot that happens under a table,
Yeah. And then he says to fidget around in your seat and to settle first on one buttock and then the next gives the impression that you are repeatedly farting or are trying to fart.
Oh, God. Yeah. Well, that's tough, man. When you've got a fart that has it, what do you do? I mean, if I'm afraid, there's certain farts where I know if I stand up, it's coming out. So I can't get to the bathroom to fart.
No.
So then you're like, well, you try to hold it. But if you try to hold it, then when you don't, it's coming out with noise. So the best way is the one cheek sneak, and let it out slowly and just hope.
Oh, just try not to fidget when you're going with one buttock to the next. But I did read where if you have to do it, then you're supposed to disguise it with a cough.
Oh, good. Yes, I've been there. Yeah.
Just make sure you time it correctly.
Or laugh. Wait for everybody to laugh, and that's when you pop it out.
And then everybody knows as it comes around the table. You know what I mean? That's what's awful. But there's nothing worse that you start coughing, expecting it. Everyone looks at you because you're coughing. They think you're choking. And then you finish.
That's true. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well,
So you,
the worst manners in the world are the people who, do a number two
yeah.
uh, in the airplane before you
Mm,
take off.
mm,
Now
yeah.
that to me is right up there. I think you should be,
Yeah.
that's capital punishment right there.
Yeah.
You
They should
couldn't
post
poop
that.
in the airport?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Before we
Oh,
take off. And there's always that guy.
yeah. That's awful. And everybody knows you because you walk down there,
Everybody
you
knows
know?
you did it. Everybody
Yeah.
hates you. They don't
Yeah.
care.
They don't care. That's
There's a
that's
lot
all.
of lack of manners on airplanes now.
Yeah.
It's
I
a
think there is.
free-for-all. It's madness up there.
Uh, Real quick, also, about the belching during dinner to show like your respect to the to the cook. There's a
Yes.
lot of. I think that's a myth out there with also like raising your pinky of like, well, in some cultures, uh,
Mhm.
you're supposed to belch to show the chef that you really enjoyed the meal. And I was looking at an article called "Is It Appropriate to Burp in Other Countries" by Thomas Devlin. And basically what he says, yeah, there's some cultures that allow you to, but you want to be sure that you know for certain what that culture is before you go and just start belching away in a meal in a foreign
I thought it
country.
was always like a pass if you accidentally burp. Like if you burp, you say, "Oh my God,
Yeah,
I'm so sorry," and they'll say, "No,
right,
it's
right.
fine. Here, it's fine." In some cultures, it means it's good food. So
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. That's what
it's
everybody
like a
always
way to
said.
let a belcher off the hook if they accidentally do it.
Well, apparently he mentions a few, and I'm not going to bring it. If you want, go look at his article because I'm not going to bring them up.
Yes.
But he only mentioned like 3 different examples of
Wow.
cultures that say, okay, that's a good thing to show the chef and the host that you had a good time. And I'll give an example. I had some friends in France when I was going to school there, and they were going to Morocco on a trip. And all the Moroccans that we knew around that town that we lived in, we're telling them, belch away at the meal. It's a sign of it's a sign of respect. So and they were practicing before they went. Like when we'd eat, they would belch before they went, so they knew how to belch on command.
I know
And
how
when
this
they
is
got,
ending.
when they got back, they said they were down there belching away. And finally, like some Moroccan said to him, like, "What are you doing?" And they were like, "Oh, we're showing respect." And he's like, "We don't do that." So it was a practical joke. All the
Awesome. That's
it
a
was a
good one. That's a
yeah,
good one. I like that. That's like a time bomb practical joke.
yeah.
You set it off and it goes off later. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
they said it was so embarrassing because all 3 of them were like belching away.
That's
All
great.
right, John. So we'll move on quickly. We'll get to choosing the right fork. Almost all etiquette books I looked at for this said, "Don't worry about choosing. It's not about etiquette's not about choosing the right fork manners."
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
get hung up on that.
Yes.
Uh,
Well, it's like the Bible. There's so much good stuff in the Bible. So much
yeah,
good stuff. The thought behind
yeah,
what's in the
yeah,
Bible is so amazing. But then you get those people who are sticklers and take
yeah,
it too
yeah,
far, and that's
yeah.
where the trouble comes. And that's the same with
With etiquette.
manners. Yeah,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
etiquette. Yeah.
I will say though, from what everyone said, whether you're eating in like an English formal dinner setting or a French formal dinner setting or an American formal dinner setting, there's like slight differences between each of those, but you'll always have your from the outside in.
Outside
So,
in.
so your
Even I
first
know that.
course, yeah,
Yeah.
your first course is going to be the fork on the farthest left is going to be for your first course, and you'll work your way in with different courses. And the same thing with your knife. Farthest right will be your first course, and then you'll work yourself way in.
Which is
So,
makes total sense.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So don't get hung up on it. And even if you use the wrong one, as long as you're being polite and and respectful and deferring to everyone else, they'll be really,
Yeah.
forgiving for you.
And nothing dickheads like more than telling you that you did it wrong and
Right.
helping you.
The one thing, though, in her book, Modern Etiquette for a Better Life, Diane Gottsman says that once you pick up your eating utensils, they must not be placed back on the table.
Oh,
So
shit. Oh, God.
yeah, I think I'm
Uh-oh.
guilty of that one.
Well, what are you supposed to do with them? You leave them on the plate and then they take
On
it
the
away and
plate.
bring you fresh?
Yeah, or at least set it on the plate. And there's different ways that you can indicate, and I'll put them on the website or on the Facebook. I'll take a photo of it. But how you place your fork and knife,
Right.
it indicates whether or not you're still eating
Right. A
or whether you're
cross means
finished.
don't pick up my plate, I thought. If you make an X,
Right,
that means
right.
leave my plate. But if they're
Yeah,
parallel, it means take it away.
yeah.
That's what
And
somebody told me.
well, it's different for if it's in England, America,
Oh, Jesus.
or Europe.
Okay.
So,
Thank God for iPhones.
yeah. And then forks, forks took a while for people to start using. We used to always eat with just our knives and our spoons.
Wow.
And forks, they first kind of documented use of a fork was in the 1100s.
Really?
And then it wasn't until like the 1800s that people started using them on a regular basis. So it took like
But they're
700
such a
years
good
for,
they're a good
yeah,
invention. But the
yeah,
best is chopsticks because you can
yeah,
do anything with chopsticks.
yeah.
You really can.
And it's they're faster, really.
Yeah.
Chopsticks are, I think the Chinese word or the Mandarin word for chopsticks is like kuai zi, which means like fast fellow or something. Like the idea is that you can eat quickly with them, and
Yeah.
you keep your fingers clean. Basically, is
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Yeah. And once you
Uh,
get good at chopsticks, you really you don't go back.
yeah, yeah. A couple other things in like a formal American or English place setting on the table. Usually, the tines of the fork will be placed facing up. Okay,
Okay.
so that
Well,
when you lay it down. In a Parisian style formal place setting, the tines will be facing down
what?
towards the table.
The
Yeah.
French always got to turn it around on you.
Yeah. And then finally we get to how we actually eat with our knives and forks. And you've
Yeah.
probably seen
Well,
this difference when you go to Europe.
yes. They
And
turn the fork over and then put stuff on it and then bring the fork up to their mouth. It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
It's so
Uh,
I don't understand it.
well, back in the 20s, Emily Post, who was a manners and etiquette writer,
Mhm.
she used to call the American way of eating the zigzag way, meaning that you hold your fork in your left hand, your knife in your right hand, you cut your piece of meat, then you set down your knife, and then you zigzag your fork over to the right hand, pick up the bite, take it, and then you do it again.
It is stupid.
Yeah. And up until, I thought, well, but people turning their forks over must have been around forever. It wasn't until up until the 1880s
Wow.
that people started writing about this new English fashion about keeping your fork turned over in your left hand
Mhm.
and then just using that to present the food to your mouth.
Yeah.
So it's only from about the 1880s that we have the English manner of eating.
I don't
And
like it. It's too hard to get the stuff up there. I don't know.
well,
I'm zigzag. I'm all zigzag.
are you zigzag?
Like,
I started doing that, trying to be French. I was like the guy in Breaking Away.
yeah.
So I started doing that when I lived in Europe, and now 40 years later, I'm still doing it. I
And
still
you
do
like
that.
it. All right.
I
Maybe I
like it.
need
Yeah.
yeah, maybe I should set aside my my prejudice and give it a go.
Well, there was a couple reasons why they think, or the people who like that way like it better. And one is that they think you have less movement, for example, like you don't
Mm,
have to switch it away.
right. It's
And
more
the other
efficient.
way is you by taking just over when you turn it over and not using the fork like a spoon or a shovel, they say you take smaller bites, so it becomes
Oh,
more elegant when you're doing that.
okay. But I
And
like
then
big bites. I want to get that stuff in my mouth.
well, yeah, yeah. Well, Visser notes that the other thing is like when you turn it over, it's harder for you to shove it all the way down in your mouth.
Yeah.
And Visser quotes Charles Dickens when he traveled throughout America in the 1840s. He noticed that the Americans thrust the broad-bladed knives and the two-pronged forks further down their throats than I ever saw the same weapons go before, except in the hands of a skilled juggler. So apparently,
Like a sword swallower.
right.
Yeah.
Apparently, Americans had this reputation of like when we used a fork or a spoon or something, we really love to shove it down in there.
That's what I do. I pile it high and get it in there. Ugh, I'm terrible.
All right. Yeah. All right, John. Well, I think we're coming to the end of our discussion on manners. Hopefully you'll use some of this at the Super Bowl party today.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's the first place I should start, because there's too much emotion. There's too much going on. I think this is more just about getting through this. I don't even enjoy the Super Bowl when the Chiefs are in it. I'm so worried and
that's how when people want me to come to a Super Bowl, and I appreciate it. And sometimes I like going to a Super Bowl party when my team's not in there, but when my team's in there, there's a part of me that just wants to be at home, focus on the game,
crying.
Yeah. I don't want people to see me when I break down, you know.
I can't control myself. I'm just like, no, crazy person.
Yeah. They'll see you at your worst. You know
so
what I mean?
You're saying it's better manners for you to not attend the party when your team is in the Super Bowl.
I think it just say beforehand to give a polite, no, I already have plans is better than to go there and be miserable and do something that's going to offend my host and the other guest. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
last year when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, I was at a friend's house. They had invited me, and they were not a football fan, and I didn't realize this. And so it was it was on without the volume, and they were all just kind of having appetizers and talking about things other than football. And I'm screaming and rolling around on the ground. I was just a total idiot, but I couldn't. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah. No, it's not. To me, like we talked about on our football show, it's the drama. It's improvised drama.
Yes. It's a reality show. It's a reality show, and it's the finale of the reality show.
Yeah. All right. So just in conclusion, though, Paul Morris, in his book on etiquette, he quotes Lord Chesterfield in 1774, who said, "A genteel manner prepossesses people in your favor, bends them towards you, and makes them wish to like you." Yeah. so if you want to know what's in it for me to be a good guest, is like it makes people like you. It makes people like you if you're a good guest.
It's nice to let them know you appreciate it, and that makes them feel good, and they like you.
Right. And it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much to make a good impression at dinner. But like you mentioned already, just remember, it's not all about you. For these couple hours, it's a back and forth between you and the host, but it's not all about you. So
I would say the rudest thing in all said, the rudest thing is being late. To me, that's the most selfish, like I just couldn't get it together. Or the being late with the excuse that it wasn't your fault. The traffic was crazy, and it's like, no, there are apps, and nobody.
You should have planned. You knew that was going to happen. Yeah.
You're doubly making me upset because you're not even taking responsibility for being late. Just apologize.
Most of the things I read were in like America and England, 15 minutes, you could wait for somebody 15 minutes, and then after that you serve the meal.
That's
and then
great.
after that,
I love that.
it's on them. You know what I mean? So
that's great. Love that.
All right. Well, John, thanks for being here for this discussion. I really appreciate
McCray,
it.
Thank you. Thank you for presenting this. I appreciated it very much.
I like to think we were co-hosts. And yet, but you made me feel like a guest. You made me feel like a guest.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening, everybody. And thank you, Jamie, for this wonderful topic. I hope we answered some of your questions about it.
And this is human number 2 signing off. And this is with all manners. with all deference.
And this is Human Number One. Thank you again. Be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram. And as always, if you have a topic that you think we should discuss, feel free to send it on over to us. Yeah. But thanks again, everybody. Love you, John. Love you, everybody. Love you.
Go Chiefs.
Go Chiefs. And remember, no fidgeting at the table. No fidgeting at the table.
Just do the one cheek sneak. Don't go back and forth. Bye, everybody.
Love you guys.
Love you. Bye.